Hello and welcome to Letters from Camp. On this episode, we have Assistant Camp Director Andy Collins from live from Camp Winoxet on the porch. Andy, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well, Mike. How are you?
Fantastic. How's the summer been so far?
It's been good. We're in week six right now. We've had about 1,000 campers up until week five. We've got another 189 today. We got one more week of program next week. It was wet early in the year. It's been hot. It's been dry. It's been everything you can imagine.
So as you know, when we start out, we kind of like to just kind of get your history with camp. So, when did you first come to camp? How many, years did you use a camper, staff? Where have you worked? That type of thing. So kind of take us through your journey here at camp.
Sure. So I started a camp in the late '90s as a camper. When I first joined scouting in sixth grade, going into sixth grade, went all the way through as a camper until 2003. My last year at camp was kind of an odd year in that I knew I wasn't going to be coming back, and I didn't really need to do merit badges. So I helped my dad and a couple other volunteers for the week build our new waterfront tower. So it wasn't like a traditional week of camp. And then I didn't come here in 2004. It was the only summer I didn't come to the Thorndike, except for a couple visits for like OA nights during the week. 2005, 2006, built the climbing tower and came up a lot actually building that, especially 2005, 2004, 2005. And eventually settled into a career in the corporate world and just started to volunteer. And one summer, 2008, we didn't have a full-time Cope director. And the plan was to have some 21-year-olds on the adventure team, kind of rotate through and take a week here, a week there. And so Matt Ford called and said, "You're out doing the corporate world thing, but you want to come to camp? We can send you to camp school. We just need you to do a couple weeks at Cope." And I said, "Sure, like why not?" So I went to camp school, came to camp. And then in 2009, I wasn't really liking doing the corporate thing. And thanks to some persuading, I think, by Will Neville and Andrew Coleman, they convinced me to basically quit my job. So I walked away from my job, 2 weeks notice, and then came to camp. Danny needed a Cope director. I was Cope director for 2 years, '09 and 10. I was supposed to be CIT director in 11. And again, Danny called in the spring and said, "I need a assistant camp director. What are your thoughts?" And I said yes. And I've been doing this ever since.
Um, I think there are a shockingly high number of people who quit regular jobs to come back to camp. Um,
Absolutely.
I quit an insurance job to come back in 2003. So yeah, and I know there's many others who've said goodbye to high paying or maybe not even high paying, but steady jobs to come back, which is great.
I mean, what better place to be, right? Like you get 17 meals a week, you get a lake, you get a mountain, you get to be outside and walk around. It's better than any corporate job, in my opinion.
So a lot of what you do as assistant camp director is more kind of behind the scenes type stuff. To those who may not be as familiar, kind of what are some of your responsibilities as assistant camp director?
So a lot of what I do is really the back office. I don't, unfortunately, interact with a lot of campers. I do a lot of ordering. I have a business manager in the office as well, so we take care of all the ordering for program supplies. Um, Really, a lot of customer-facing stuff with unit leaders, especially right. Pre-camp meetings. Now we're all in Zoom, which is great. Things like payroll and onboarding our staff. Our NCAP accreditation program is a big part of the job for the first couple of weeks to make sure that all that documentation is there. Permits and all the things that are not fun program things that you can imagine that it's involved in putting together a business. That's kind of what I do, right? It's a lot of time in the back office, a lot of time when Danny or Will need something done, and it's like, there's a lot of detail work, and someone needs to be on a spreadsheet or finding some random part, right? Our copier, the some part on the photocopier like died on Saturday morning, and it was like, okay, drop what you're doing.
Mhm.
We need to find and source this part, and we need it here tomorrow, right? Like we can't wait. That's a lot of what my job entails.
Yeah. And so, um, sorry. So you did return pretty recently from the National Jamboree.
Yep.
Um, So can you explain a little bit, maybe for those who don't know, like what is the National Jamboree? And I know you've kind of staffed even a World Jamboree and NOACs and things like that. So what's kind of those experiences like, and how is it maybe different from the traditional camp experience?
Sure. So I mean, for both for NOACs and Jamborees, you you're not in a you're not in a property like Camp Onoxit where it's a small contained, and you're working with everyone for 8.5 weeks. Um, those kind of events, when I've staffed them, it's been a lot of work leading up to it. And so the event itself might be 1 or 2 weeks in length, but you're working for 12, 18 months before that in kind of the planning. And for me, that's something I really like. I like the challenge of like starting something and problem solving and trying to figure out something from scratch, not just grabbing the binder off the shelf and like turning to page one. I love doing that. I love the operation of camp. I love always trying to find something new to fix or improve and make better at camp. But something like a World Jamboree or a National Jamboree or NOAC is just different in that you're starting from scratch, and there might be a framework there, and you're working with lots of other people from all across the country and the World Jamboree of the world to create something. And so I can't encourage people enough to like go to one of these big national events, meet people, exchange ideas, see different cultures, see, what is even just at a national jamboree, like what does your summer camp do that's different? Um, what is your school year like, right? That was the first time I realized like, oh yeah, there's New England is different in that we start school at Labor Day and we go until the end of June, right? And I've got friends right now from National World Jamborees, like they've been in the classroom for a week already, and it's
Mhm.
it's the first week of August. For those events, I've been doing a lot of tech stuff. You probably remember my nickname, IT Andy, from the early days, right? So I kind of early on, I never went to a jamboree as a scout. Um, our chaplain, Brandon, actually was the one who kind of pulled me in 2017. He was doing something with communications. I had worked with him previously at a NOAC, and he was also my log advisor. So he was kind of say, hey, come to Jamboree, it'd be a lot of fun. I did some email newsletters, and website stuff, and then eventually that turned into doing mobile apps. So I've kind of become typecast as the national event app guy. Did the national event app for the World Jamboree app. That was a fun, exciting project. I'm never going to get a chance to do something like that ever again, I'm sure. Um, Being able to like create something and spec it out. I didn't do the coding myself. We had a company doing it, but doing all the like project management and doing it for 3 different languages and thinking about, well, is it going to be American English or is it going to be, UK Commonwealth English and that we use? But I've also done the mobile app for a couple of NOACs now. I just got back and we did the mobile app for this past National Jamboree down at the summit. And it's really cool just working with people not from New England, not from your camp, on some exciting projects. Probably my most favorite memory, two favorite memories from those type of events. One positive was being at a NOAC in 2018 and being in the stadium. And you've been to a NOAC, so like you're in the arena and there's thousands of other people, and we needed a push notification on the app sent out, and I'm literally sitting there on my phone typing out the push notification, and you hit send, and like a minute later everyone's phones all around you start to bing, and like you see them pulling their phones out, and you're like, that was really cool, like I just sent a message to thousands of people, right? The other not so positive one was when we canceled the National Jamboree because of COVID.
Yeah.
We were all stuck at home in 2020, and we were working on the 2021 Jamboree, and we had already created Facebook pages and a website and all the things. We had to announce the cancellation, and hitting that button to cancel the Facebook event was somber, but also kind of interesting and impactful to see. Like we just canceled a national event.
Yeah.
So
And that, for those who maybe don't know, that lends well to your, full year time job as a computer technology teacher as well. So I'm sure there's a lot
yeah,
of ways where your regular job influences camp and vice versa and all of that.
oh yeah,
Um,
absolutely. The app stuff, I brought that stuff back to the classroom too. It's really cool to talk to students. They'll be like, "How when are we ever going to use this, problem solving thing?" And I'm like, "Hold that thought. Let's talk about this challenge we had at the World Jamboree, and like showing them the code and showing them the app that we had to make on the fly." So yeah, it's awesome to bring that kind of stuff back into the classroom to kids who aren't scouts and talk about the experience.
yep. Um, and you know, you've been working at camp for a very long time. What keeps you coming back?
Um, I think it's the structure, right? Going into COVID, the summer before COVID, it was, I've been doing the assistant camp director job since 2011. It had been wash, rinse, repeat, right? Things have evolved over time. Now we have high speed internet. We didn't have that back a couple years ago, and it was getting kind of stale. And then the summer of 2020, obviously we didn't have camp, and we planned like crazy to try to have camp up until the last minute, until the regulations changed. And then I spent the summer at home, and it was boring. It was not fun. It was relaxing. Don't get me wrong. Spent a lot of time with friends hiking that summer. Painted the house, did a lot of cool things, but it wasn't it wasn't the disciplined structure that we have here at camp. Of you're up by a certain time, and we're going to have this meal at this time, and you're doing work. They're long days, but I think that's what brings me back. Right? It's consistency. Um, it's also seeing the impact on our staff. We have a great program. Will and Rachel do a great job at the program for our campers, as you did when you were program director. I like to focus on the staff and like the staff development and the training, and making sure that they realize that, yeah, it's a job, but let's train you to be a good employee. Here's how you ask for time off. Here's how you fill out a job application. Here's how you fill out your I-9, your W-4, stuff like that. And seeing those scouts, it's now been a couple generations of kids who've come through the camp program as staff, have turned 21, 22. They've moved on. They have to go, I hate to say it, to the real world, right? And then they come back and they're like, yeah, you had an impact. Like, I know how to like have an email conversation with my boss or with HR. Like, thank you. Like, those are the kinds of things that I think keep me going now too.
Mhm. All right. Let's move into our lightning round.
All
So
right.
first off, favorite camp song.
Charlie on the MTA. Specifically remember it my first year. I think it was Chuck Berry Skillen doing that song as a first year camper in the old amphitheater.
Hmm. How about your favorite camp skit?
I have a fond memory, my first couple of years, of the radio skit. And there was like maybe 10 people behind the big sheet doing the radio skit, and I really liked the banter back and forth. I don't think I've seen that done in a number of years at camp.
Hard looping right to the breadbasket.
Yes.
How about your favorite meal?
Oh, that's gonna be probably, well, it was meatloaf up until we cut meatloaf off the menu a couple years ago for rotation. Sad about that one. The meatloaf was very, very good. I think my current favorite meal is probably turkey dinner night. There's nothing better than seeing a half a turkey, like not the pre-sliced lunch meat stuff, like a half a bird go out in some young scout's hand with like a knife stuck in the middle of it, right?
Mhm.
And then the adult leaders just watch the kids try to carve it. Like, it is the best meal ever. Plus, you get all the fixings, and the best part recently has been the cornbread stuffing that we've had. I really like it.
How about your favorite place in camp?
I Okay. Well, I mean, everyone probably says chapel,
They
right?
do.
The bench behind chapel, more specifically.
Hmm.
Uh, Couple good sunrises from that place. Probably the other place, to be totally honest, is probably the OA ring. Spent a lot of time in the Order of the Arrow, Lodge Advisor most recently. And the ring up there has a special place, I think, for me. I also just like how it's all moss, right? It's the first time I was there, it was like, whoa, this is just a magical, cool place. But maybe the OA ring, since the chapel is the cliche answer.
For good reason, though. For good reason.
Yeah.
And when you were coming up as a camper, was there someone you really looked up to, kind of your, camp hero, anything like that?
Boy. Probably Sean Walker. Sean was the program director when I was a young scout, um, later, and CIT director as well. And I remember the energy he brought. He and Danny both, Jeff D, him as well. The energy they brought from a campus perspective. I remember just watching the probably the insanity of them, and just the energy at camp. And now Sean is a good friend of mine. We go hiking and skiing all the time.
Yeah, great answer. Well, Andy, thank you for your time. And I know it's Sunday evening, getting ready for dinner in a little bit. Um, but
Pizza
thanks
and
for
salad, right, Mike?
yep, absolutely. But thank you for joining us, and make sure you tune in next month for our episode of Letters from Camp.